give me some kicks. Now, all you ladies, I shoot from the hip. I was born with a stiff upper lip. Like it down in the house.
Hey everyone, alright, we are here live at Buffalo Wild Wings on Long Island, and welcoming back to the show, longtime friend of mine, longtime guest of the show, the one, the only, Anthony C. Anthony, what's going on?
I want to say thank you very much, everybody. It's great to be back on the podcast world. We're here at B-Dubs, just having a good time watching UFC 200. And after a long week, it's time to unwind.
Hey, man, and it is UFC 200. Tonight, actually, there's been a whole lot of changes to the card. The main event now, Miesha Tate and Tate Nunez for the women's title. Women's welterweight? Is it?
Women's, I think, bantamweight.
Yeah, okay. And, of course,
something like that.
Lesnar and Hunt, and we'll get that to the moment. But first, let's talk about UFC 200. It's live in Las Vegas. Amanda Nunez right now is walking into the arena, or at least earlier today she was. What fight are you looking towards tonight of these co-main events?
Well, every fight is good because they really stack the card. I mean, when you really think about it, the most direct answer, right, I can give you is that I really am looking forward to two fights. Originally, this whole John Jones bit, but
we'll get into that in a moment.
Yeah, and I'm not very happy about that, but I will say that for Anderson Silva to step up to fight Daniel Cormier, I like them both, but I still think that Silva's already solidified his legacy, but I think that Daniel Cormier needs to solidify his legacy or build one. So I'm really going for DC, and especially with all the adversity this poor guy's gone through, I'm a huge DC fan. The other fight is, obviously, no question about it, my dude, Brock Lesnar. I'm a huge Brock Lesnar fan. I always have been since day one, whether it be pro wrestling or MMA. The man's awesome. He is, when I look at him train, I want to train.
Let me ask you this. Now, Brock's back in the UFC for the first time in a long time. Do you think him being away from the octagon, do you think him being in the WWE may not throw him off his game, but give him, quote-unquote, we'll call it octagon rust?
Well, from what I understand, there's two ways that you could look at it. According to somebody like Dominic Cruz, who took off, I think, a year or 2 years from fighting, he says that there's no such thing as rust. He says as long as you train diligently and correctly, there should be no rust. On the other hand, the majority of the fighters would probably tell you that if you have not trained or fought consistently, there is a certain type of quote-unquote training you get within the octagon during fighting that if you don't keep consistently doing it, you can lose it. I think that Brock has always trained. I think that's the reason why his road schedule is a lot less. I think he fight.
Well, I think that's for a whole different reason.
But he wrestles 3 times a year?
A couple house shows probably, and then he's WrestleMania, SummerSlam.
Right, so I think that after the time that he's not there, he's training. The guy's he's a beast. But not only that, but I think that he's really training. I don't think you're going to see the Brock Lesnar from the Death Clutch days when he had his own gym. But I think you're going to see a version of Brock that's going to be pretty damn good.
When was the last time? How long ago was he in the octagon last?
But I think the last time he's fought, you said? I think it was at least 2 years ago when Alistair Overeem KO'd him. Was it 2-3 years ago? Something like that.
Probably something like that, probably. All right. And how about Tate Nunez? What are you thinking about that?
Oh, my future wife, Miesha Tate. I am so in love with this woman. I don't care who she fights. She could fight Queen Elizabeth for all I care. I'm in love with her. I will stand by her till the day I'm dead, or until the day that she marries me or divorces me or whatever.
All right, it's pretty interesting. UFC 200's got a gold mat, which is kind of cool to see.
Oh, by the way, one other sleeper fight many people are not promoting here is the Jose Aldo Frankie Edgar fight. That's supposed to be phenomenal. Those are really two good athletes. So.
Okay. And that's about it. We're here. We're getting ready. Our food's getting ready to get delivered here. They just had the Vasquez and Brown fight, and Brown actually got TKO'd, which I was kind of shocked at. But let me ask you this. You know, they announced Brock is going to be at SummerSlam. He's going to be taking on the returning Randy Orton. But do you think the outcome of tonight, not storyline-wise, I just mean like mentally speaking, you think it would throw Brock off competing in WWE if he loses and gets embarrassed tonight? Like, in other words, Randy Orton may be killed at SummerSlam if that was the case?
I think that's a really, really good question. I think it's also a good point you bring up. I think Brock himself had said at one point, was it SB Nation or MMAfighting.com, that there was an article that put out that said that even he himself, after this fight, doesn't know where he wants his MMA career to go. I think that it's interesting. I think that with pro wrestling, he's always going to have a space in sports entertainment.
He's got the he's got the best job in the world with WWE because he works barely, and I think he's got 2 years. I think what he signed, I think he re-signed 3 years right before WrestleMania 31.
Right. He's always going to have a top tier spot within the WWE sports entertainment roster. But MMA is only something that you can only do for so long. So I think what this guy's trying to do is, I think Brock's just trying to get it in and fight as much as he can before, he really can't go anymore.
Now that's longevity. This is UFC 200. At UFC 203, we're finally going to see CM Punk step into the octagon. Now you're talking about longevity, and you only do this for so long. Do you think Punk is starting too late?
Well, if you look at fighters today, I mean, you got Dan Henderson who's fighting at 44, 45. Randy Couture fought until 48.
But they were consistent. Right. Punk is stepping in for the first time.
Punk, it's a crapshoot because on one hand, from what I understand, he is Muay Thai trained. On the other hand, by the way, Frankie Edgar is coming out and running like the ultimate warrior for some odd reason. This is a waste of energy as far as I'm concerned. He doesn't look like he's sinking it in. I mean, for you to fight a guy like Jose Aldo, you're not supposed to expend any extra energy. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, CM Punk, I know he's Muay Thai trained. I know he's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu trained. But to be very honest with you, for a guy who's now transitioning into the MMA world in his mid-30s, keep in mind he's not a Brock Lesnar, he's not a Bobby Lashley, he's not a Ken Shamrock. And this guy he's fighting, I forgot what his name is, this guy's good. It's too hard of a challenge in a way. I think it's going to be up in the air. But I think that if he diligently trains, if he loses, it's done. He's never going to fight.
There's two reasons why people are going to watch UFC 203, as far as, I think, wrestling fans. One set want to see Punk do amazing, and another group wants to see him get his butt kicked.
Well, I'm a big Punk fan. I mean, I think he's cool. I mean...
Me too.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that he
for 434 days, he was on top of the mountain.
Yeah, best in the world. I mean, that BITW...
well, there's only one best in the world at what they do, and that would be the Gift of Jericho.
Then why do you lose to Ambrose?
So CM Punk at UFC 203. Continue.
Hey, man.
69 tacks. That maniac put 69 tacks in him.
Look, I'm ready to see Punk go in that octagon. I think that he has a lot to prove. He has a lot of pressure. But I think that ultimately in the end, it's all a matter of whether you win or lose. I mean, it's all it is, man. I think that if he does lose, he may have another stab at it, but not in the UFC. He may go to Bellator.
But this is a little different. Like in WWE, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. The whole idea is for the fans and put on a show. Here, it is about winning and losing.
Right, absolutely. But I think that if he loses, he may not fight in the UFC again. If he does, and he loses again, he's done for.
Oh, I see.
But I think that he's going to go. Probably, maybe Bellator might pick him up for the namesake alone of CM Punk. But then beyond that, if he loses there, his MMA career is done.
Yeah. Any news on Ronda Rousey? Because she had a rough mental state there when she lost.
I haven't heard anything, but I heard that she is considering coming back to fight. But again, going back to what I was saying about Miesha Tate, almost like Daniel Cormier. if he doesn't beat John Jones at some point in his career, he won't be able to fully live with himself and cement his legacy. Same thing with Miesha Tate. If she doesn't beat Ronda Rousey at some point in her career, she's never going to live with it. I mean, and I think that Rousey is still capable of beating her.
Now, you make a good point about that with Tate and Rousey, but it was originally going to be John Jones on this fight, and just literally, a week ago, a couple of days ago, he got busted again. Was it for coke again? No, not coke. Marijuana. But still, he got busted for something, and he's out of the picture again. Now, you're saying that DC, to cement his legacy, has to defeat John Jones, but John Jones embarrassed himself in the sport, and in a way, I feel DC kind of beat him already with that.
That's a good point. I mean, if, let's say Jones gets the full suspension, you're looking at 2 years. I mean, the USADA, the doping, commission, they don't play, man, because I think they wanted to do that with, was it Nick or Nate Diaz? Because he was caught for marijuana possession. I think that Jones embarrassed himself. He lost a lot of fans. He lost a lot of his legacy. He could have gone down as one of the greatest fighters of all time, even surpassing Anderson Silva. But look at what he's done to himself. He screwed over the company, the president. I mean, I heard even Dana White doesn't want to talk to him right now.
Listen, I'm a firm believer in what you do outside of your sport is just as important as what you do in the sport. Because there's too many times that a lot of these guys, football, baseball, that they get busted for stuff, but people are like, oh, let's just forget about it. Not just sports, even in entertainment. I'm talking entertainment, music, everything. And a lot of people feel that these guys are so above and beyond that they can get away with anything. And in some cases, get away with murder, literally. So that's why I feel with what John Jones did to embarrass himself in the UFC, you can't even talk about DC and Jones in the same breath anymore because John Jones beat himself.
But let me ask you this. Okay, I know John Jones just came back, won one fight after a long layoff, right? But let me ask you this hypothetical question. If John Jones was ready to fight tonight, okay, and let's say this doping thing never happened, and he's fighting DC, how much of a chance do you think DC has of beating him?
But that's different. But what ifs? That's a whole bunch of ifs.
Because, I mean, now, but ask yourself this. Did DC dodge a bullet tonight? Because if Jones is ready and prepared to beat him, and he does...
Well, what's the record between the two of them?
Jones has beat him. That's it.
Oh, they only fought once?
I think they've only fought once, yeah.
They fought twice, huh?
And then what happened was that they stripped him of the title because he got into a car accident and ran away from the scene and hit some pregnant lady. And then they had it was vacant, and then DC won it. So the thing is, my question is, did DC dodge a bullet? Or because if he lost to Jones tonight, where would his legacy, or what will people remember him for in his career? Or if he didn't dodge a bullet, and let's say he won tonight, nobody will never know because we'll never be able to find out. At least maximum possibly for 2 years.
Again, a whole bunch of what ifs, but that's besides the case. And who's DC fighting again tonight now? Is it a title fight?
Anderson Silva. No, it is a title fight from what I heard.
All right, title match. So there you go. All right, well, hopefully you're watching UFC at home, whether on the UFC app or on pay-per-view. Free plugs. But other than that, though, what else has been going on? Watching anything else? Good movies? Good TV shows? Anything?
A lot of the TV shows that I watch are actually on, they're off-season right now. So, I mean, I haven't really been watching a few things. I don't know if you guys watch a channel called Viceland. I watch a show called Wong's World. It's pretty awesome. Really interesting. That's a channel that I think was created by Spike Jonze. Pretty cool.
I've seen the app, yeah.
Right. I mean, other than that, haven't really watched too much, so it's like...
No problem.
I'm looking forward to... I think... Isn't Zombieland 2 at some point coming out?
Oh, I don't know. I think that's in production purgatory.
I was reading something about that. But yeah, I'm waiting for that.
right, no problem. Well, we're here. Our food's going to come out here in a little bit, so we're going to enjoy UFC 200. And I'm going to throw it back to the studio, i.e. my apartment, back to me, because I'll probably wrap this up with some other stuff. But, Anthony, thank you again for joining us, and hope to have you see you again soon, maybe before UFC 203.
Much love to everybody, and just ask and wish for some peace in this world right now, considering all the things that are going on. But that's for another date. Thanks so much, everybody.
Hashtag lock and load. I'll talk to you guys later. All right. Well, thank you very much for throwing it back to me, Larry. It's Larry back at home base. And this is a couple hours after we watched UFC 200 from the T-Mobile Center in T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Anthony, let's get right to it. What are your thoughts on UFC 200?
I'm kind of heartbroken right now because, I don't want to. First of all, I don't want to put any spoilers for anybody who hasn't watched the event.
This is posting Wednesday. I don't think anyone's gonna.
Well, yeah, you folks will probably.
Spoiler alert! All right, there you go.
Hear it right now. Let's see. Every fight was good. I personally was disappointed in the main event because my future wife Misha Tate. I couldn't believe she lost, man. I mean, I don't know who this girl Amanda Nunes was. But she apparently seemed really good. It didn't look like It didn't look like Tate was very prepared for this. But I'm very, very happy about the Daniel Cormier fight. I mean, I love Anderson Silva. I think he's a great fighter. But I just wanted to see Cormier win because it really builds up for his legacy, and I think he's a good, really good fighter. The happiest I've been. Probably all week was seeing Brock Lesnar win because always a big fan of Brock since day one, and it's just that being a wrestling fan, when he steps in that octagon, it to me, as I think that we had mentioned when we were watching this, I had mentioned to you that I really think that a lot of mixed martial art fighters don't really respect professional wrestling. But yet a lot of professional wrestlers and fans of wrestling do respect the UFC and MMA. So, it's good to see, you got all these guys who, how many people like Ken Shamrock who can step into the octagon and then step into a wrestling ring, and then they're saying that we can't do what they do. Well, you got a guy like Brock Lesnar who stepped into the octagon and just kicked ass. So it does prove that, wrestlers do have their worth and their place in that. Just because, it's sports entertainment doesn't mean that it's not physical and these guys are not in condition. They're in great condition. Never underestimate the conditioning of a pro wrestler.
But I think there's going to be a difference between someone like Brock Lesnar, who wrestled in college, versus Punk, who we'll see in September, who was a pro wrestler, yes, has some martial arts background, but I still think it's going to be a difference between a Brock Lesnar stepping into the octagon and a CM Punk stepping into the octagon.
Well, but keep in mind, everybody started from somewhere, and also, let me also point this out. There are a list of people who actually are professional wrestlers who are who were in the fight game or in the fight game. Just to give you a few examples, let's not forget Bobby Lashley. Let's not forget Batista. Let's not forget Alberto Del Rio.
When did Del Rio do it?
Del Rio fought in, I think, was it Pancrase or Dream in Japan, prior to, or while he was doing Lucha Libre or before Lucha Libre. So,
was this when he got released for a little while?
No.
Oh, before.
Before. He was I think he only has 1 or 2 losses in his column. He was a great MMA fighter. He's really good. Okay. A lot of these Japanese pro wrestlers are MMA guys, too. So, it goes hand in hand, but I think a lot of MMA fans don't see that.
Well, I think I'm going to be a little biased because of the pro wrestling aspect of it, but Brock Lesnar, he was definitely dominant tonight, especially in that. I don't think, admittedly, that his fight should have went unanimous to him. I think Mark Hunt barely beat him by points in the second round, But Brock was definitely dominant in the third round and definitely in the first round. So, decision-wise, should have went to Brock, but I was shocked it was unanimous.
Let me throw a question at you at this point, because we were talking a lot about CM Punk throughout the night. Do you think that with Brock winning now, do you think that this puts more pressure on Punk to perform and win in a UFC octagon, or do you think that this just doesn't have like much relevance, whether it has no effect on Punk, and why?
Definitely,
because both guys represent.
It's different.
Well, both guys represent professional wrestling because that's where they came from. That's what their name is.
True, but Punk is more a pro wrestler than Brock Lesnar. But it's definitely. I don't think one has to do with the other because first of all, they're two different fighters, Punk and Brock. Second of all,
in what manner?
Well, Brock is just a brute wrestler, where I think Punk will have a little bit of that fighting. He does have fighting training style, but he's also. I don't know what he's going to be considered. What rank class is he going to be? We were talking about this earlier about my favorite. I like to watch the heavyweights. It's mostly ground and pound with the heavyweights. And that's not going to be Punk. Punk and whoever he's fighting, I forget his name, I'm sorry. They're going to be moving around more, probably try and get more submissions. Punk with the submissions. I think he knows submissions, and I'm trying to do this as a shoot. I mean, yeah, he has the Anaconda Vice, but I think Punk is familiar with submission wrestling. And he's been gone for a couple of years. I'm sure he's been watching and training, hopefully, even though he keeps getting hurt, training to do this mix. He's got 2 years of training. If he never trained a day of his life before he left the WWE.
I think that when he does fight, he's going to fall under either the welterweight or the middleweight division, which is 170 to 185 pound.
Okay.
Which means that if he falls in either, a lot of these guys are very grapple-based.
I feel like in the WWE, now granted, it's a work weight, I'm sure, but he was always billed at 220, so his shoot weight.
Or catch weight?
Yeah, well, yeah, depending on how you want to call it. His real weight is probably between 190 and 210, maybe 205. But I still think it's two different. It's no pun intended, two different beasts. You know what? Hold on. Let's try and incorporate the WWE into this because Brock and Punk fought each other at SummerSlam a couple years ago. In actually probably the best match of that year in 2013. 2013?
How do you tie it into the MMA
2013. No. I'm saying styles. Like if you look at style, Brock was slow, methodical, and just, he's been doing all the suplexes. But where Punk tried to outmaneuver him, tried to tire him, get him to run and expunge that energy. Even tonight, when you saw Brock in that third round, Brock pretty much just laid on top of Mark Hunt the entire fight.
Mounted him and just pretty much pounded him.
And Mark Hunt was already blown up going into the second round.
Well, the guy has no ground game, so he has no ground defense. I mean, he has been very lucky that he's been stylistically matched.
Mark Hunt, you mean?
Right.
Okay.
With guys who strike. That's what he knows.
And also his records, now it's 12, 11, and 1. Mark Hunt's a 50% fighter.
Right.
So.
It's true. I mean, look, and this is just how I feel about it, but if you put a striker up against a grappler, a striker does have a striker's chance of hitting a target. But, what generally, and I'm not saying this always happens, or I'm not saying this will definitely happen, but generally a striker is going to lose simply because what a grappler does is just take him down, take him off his feet, and just pound him out. And I think that that's what the heavyweight division is really all about with a lot of these big guys. Or they strike and there's no ground game.
True. But to go back to your question, it's definitely two different styles, two different. What happened tonight, I think, has no bearing on Punk. In fact, Punk is good. It's not like Vince is supporting CM Punk the way he did Brock Lesnar. You're not going to see a trailer for Night of Champions when Punk fights in September. So, or Hell in a Cell, whichever comes next at that point. So that's the other thing where it's just going to be Punk going out there. And I'm curious. Apparently he owns CM Punk because that's what they're billing him at. But it wouldn't surprise me if he walks out as Phil Brooks anyway.
Unless he bought it.
He probably owned it before because he was the Indies, CM Punk, and he's probably smart enough to not have Vince own the rights to that name. So, and if he did own the rights to the name, he would not be called CM Punk.
Like Sting.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
But so that was the first of two main events. The second one, which I know kind of a little hard for you to take, is the welterweight, I think it was, the women's championship match tonight, bantamweight, excuse me, between Miesha Tate and Nunes. Amanda Nunes.
I don't know anything about the girl, so I don't really know much about Nunes at all. I mean, I just heard that she's good.
Clearly, she's good. She's the new champion.
But I think that Tate just didn't look like she was prepared. She looked like she kind of went in there and went on survival mode from the start. I don't think she really prepared for this fight. I mean,
well, I mentioned it to you before. Ronda Rousey was so dominant as champion and then got destroyed by Holly Holm. Holly Holm was dominant in her title win, and I wouldn't say destroyed, but she definitely did not look good at all against Miesha Tate when Miesha Tate won the title. Miesha Tate was dominant in her title victory, but she looked like hell tonight.
You think that was just karma?
No, I don't think it's karma. I just find it odd that
just the way the universe works in the MMA world.
I don't know if you want to believe it like that. It's just weird that there's only been 4 bantamweight champions in the women's division, and it seems like every time the title is lost, it's in a dominant fashion. Not only that, Holly Holm, her first defense, she lost. Miesha Tate, her first defense, she lost. So Nunes, whoever she fights first, you better look out because the way things are going, no one's still been as dominant as Ronda Rousey. But, Miesha, she was prepared, but probably prepared in a different way. Like when Ronda was prepared to fight, but not prepared to fight a boxer.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then just Miesha Tate just had Holly Holm's number, I think, when they fought. But also Miesha Tate, everyone thought of her as a good MMA fighter, but not the best because she never beat Ronda Rousey. And then she wins the title, but here she is in her first title defense. I mean, it looks like her nose was broken. She lost in the first round, and
I'd still marry her.
That's another loss in her column, but be that as it may.
Damn you, Caraway. Damn you.
But she didn't look properly prepared.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's what I was trying to get at, is that she did not look like she was properly prepared for this fight. I mean, she really didn't look like she knew how to approach her. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, she looked like she was just going on survival mode because it was just what's available. Yeah. Like when you saw the takedown, it looked like she just figured, oh, okay, this just looks like an opportunity for a takedown, so let me do it and see what happens. She didn't look like she wanted to be hit either tonight, which is like, like I don't know what happened. I think that if she was clearly focused well, I think that she can definitely give her another good fight. But that's now one thing about the UFC is that unlike the WWE, when you lose your title, you're not the number one contender on paper on the rankings.
That's not true because Holly Holm was, yeah.
Well, but okay, but
I know, yeah, because Nunes was ranked 4.
But what I'm saying is that
she was ranked lower than that,
like 4 or 5, right? But what I'm saying is that the UFC is notorious for when a champion loses their title, they don't get an immediate title rematch.
Yeah.
They have to go down the freaking line, and you got to walk. I don't even know who does these rankings because for so long, a guy like Michael Bisping was in the top 5, and he barely fought. What the hell kind of bullshit is this? Excuse me for saying that, but it's true. You know, I mean, it heats me up because I don't understand where they get these rankings from.
It's not even the rankings. They don't go by the rankings anyway because a lot of times the challengers aren't number 1 contenders.
See, I still don't understand the matchmaking process there. I mean, it just doesn't clearly make sense. Like a guy like Jose Aldo,
Well, they were ranked 1 and 2 in that fight tonight for the interim title.
I get all that, but what I'm saying is that when Jose Aldo fought, I still don't understand why that was an interim title. Because if Conor McGregor is the champion,
I think Conor McGregor is an interim champion.
Okay, but when Jose Aldo is,
and
he beat Aldo, which should make him it should unify.
Was Aldo champion at the time? No, here's what happened. Hold on. I now remember. When McGregor won the title, he was supposed to fight whoever was the defending champion. But that guy either got hurt or something dumb happened, and he was out of the fight. And then McGregor fought someone else
Chad
for
Mendes.
the interim championship.
Right.
And I'm guessing the champion was supposed to fight tonight or something.
Okay.
And then, again, out. And it's the only thing I can assume that then turned this into an interim title match. Or that guy's out indefinitely, and they have to have another interim, and then eventually the two interims will fight to win the champ. That's how Brock was a heavyweight champion. Wasn't Brock an interim heavyweight champion, or someone was an interim champion, and then they had to unify the titles?
It was Shane Carwin.
Yeah. It's the way they do it in UFC.
Right.
I mean, I know WWE's work, but I'm just saying as far as, I don't know how they do it in boxing if that ever happened, but...
I agree with that. Okay, I can understand what your point is.
But nevertheless, it was a good show, good card, very good card. I thought the match of the night, the fight of the night, I think it was Brock.
You think so?
Yeah, Brock, and then if Brock and Hunt was 1, then DC and what's his name, Silva was 1A.
I told everybody that Aldo, Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar fight was a sleeper. A lot of people slept on that fight because they didn't. It was just overshadowed by too many big names.
Yeah.
But that was a pretty good fight too.
It was a great fight. The whole card was really good.
That Travis Brown fight really surprised.
Yeah, right. Yeah, honestly.
That Kane actually just KO'd him.
And I didn't see any of the undercards. So I don't know.
Yeah, me neither.
I have to go back and watch that. But somehow when I was playing around with the UFC app, I ended up signing up for 7-day free pass to the UFC Fight Pass. All right, we're going to start to wrap this up, but a quick question. Your thoughts on UFC finally coming to Madison Square Garden? You and I, both born and raised in Brooklyn, and we've gone to the Garden many times, mostly for WWE. I've been there once for hockey, once for basketball, a few concerts, so we know the Garden. How do you feel about UFC not only coming to New York State, but coming to Madison Square Garden?
Well, it's kind of a. This is going to sound really weird for me to say this, but it sounds like kind of like a tough thing because, well, if you're an MMA fan, obviously this is freaking huge.
Yeah, this is better than going to Newark.
Right, because, I mean, to be very honest with you, you don't have to travel anywhere but MSG for, an event, which is great. But I think that if you're a part of the general public, this is irrelevant.
Oh, we're not. That's
right.
That doesn't matter. I'm talking about as a fan of UFC.
As a fan,
and being from New York, and we've been to the Garden hundreds of times.
Well, I'm glad that they finally legalized something in New York because New York City, to me, has become a communist society. You can't do literally. It has become worse than Pyongyang, North Korea, because I mean, look. You can't...
These thoughts are not necessarily those also of More of the Same or its subsidiaries.
Yeah, but you endorsed me. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. It's just that I find...
What? Go
I
ahead,
find that as an MMA fan, I think that it's a huge thing because, finally, the one last holdout state in the nation that never legalized the sport that's been around for nearly, 20, 30 years. And as a fan, it's like, holy mother of God, it's finally here. Now we could do it in the Barclays. We could do it in MSG.
Well, I'm sure they'll do it in MSG.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. I don't think they'll go to the Barclays.
And what's really interesting is that it's finally here. So I'm very happy for a lot of the fighters who are New York born and raised, who are able now to fight in their own hometown instead of traveling to a different place.
But you, as
a fan,
being from New York, going to the Garden, I mean, they call it the world's most famous arena for a reason.
Here's what I have a little beef here. If you generally look at how much the price of admission is, even like when you go to Newark and you look at how much a UFC event is, and I'm not talking about a pay-per-view one, I'm just talking about a general fight night. The general cost of a ticket is a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, just nosebleed seats one time, I looked for a fight. I forgot what card it was. And I wanted to be there because Mark Munoz was going to fight, and I'm a huge fan. In fact, I'm wearing his shirt right now. Basically, what was it? I think like nosebleed was like about $200-$300. I mean, that was pretty steep, you know.
But it's also like 7 hours of fights.
No, it's not.
All right, 6 hours.
It's more like 3 or 4
hours.
hours.
Can't be. No, because the prelims started
The
at
prelims
6 o'clock.
started at 6 or 7, right?
And the show ended at 1.
No, but that's in a pay-per-view, yes.
Yeah.
But in a regular fight night,
It's not a fight. Madison Square Garden is going to be a pay-per-view.
6 or 7 hours. I mean, can you really sit down and endure all that?
I did in Dallas, Texas for WrestleMania.
Yeah, but WrestleMania is totally different because each fight was relevant. If you ever look at a lot of the prelim fights in UFC, I kid you not, like more than half the audience is not there.
Oh, I'm sure no one's showing up, but you're still paying for it.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and if I'm paying that much money, I'll be there all to watch every fight.
Absolutely.
And I'll have good seats. I'll have a good view for at least the first few hours.
Oh, I agree with you.
Before people start filling in.
But I think this is a very good thing. A very good thing.
You know what's going to be weird, though? Forget it. Never mind. It's gone. I was going to say, it would have been awesome if UFC was at the Garden before they redesigned the Garden, when they had that short entrance.
Ooh.
Like, remember the old WWE entrance? The
Yeah,
short one?
yeah.
They don't have that anymore. So
really?
That would have been just cool to see, because I'm sure they would have come straight out there, because now they come from the corner, they go around and everything. And the Garden's small enough, because it's deceiving on TV. When you're at the Garden, it's actually fairly intimate. Meaning it seems a lot smaller than it looks on TV.
There really is no bad seat there.
No, not like the Barclays Center for hockey. There's a whole bunch of obstructed viewing. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to try and get my tickets.
They can also, well, I mean, if Nassau was around, you know.
You know what? I don't think they would have gone to Nassau Coliseum. Nassau Coliseum has a name for it, but it's Madison Square Garden. Let's face facts.
Well, if you're going to hold one in New York, you got to hold one there first, and then wherever else it goes is where it goes.
I don't think they'll go to Barclays.
Well, you never know.
I don't think they, because if they're going to go to New York, you might as well go to the city.
You know what I think? I think that Bellator MMA will go to Barclays. Maybe
that's a good question. So they've legalized. It's not that they legalized UFC; they legalized MMA.
They legalized mixed martial arts.
All right, you're right. Then you'll get something like Bellator, or what are they like? I don't even know what else is around.
Right, Bellator. You may get like other organizations.
WEC or something like that.
No, WEC was bought by UFC.
Oh, were they? Oh, I don't know.
So is Strikeforce. So is all the other stuff.
So pretty much, you got UFC, which is the WWE, and you got Bellator, which is like TNA.
More like WCW, because they're really funded well, actually.
No, I meant today's day and age.
Oh, today.
Then who's number 3? Who's ROH?
Damn. There's an outside organization called ONE FC in Asia that's producing.
Pride still around?
No, Pride was bought up by UFC.
Oh.
But ONE FC is kind of like a replacement of Pride, but I think it's based in Singapore, and they use a lot of these stars that came from the UFC. They go over there now in Pride. I'm sorry, in ONE FC, and from what I understand, ONE FC pays very well. So you have a lot of fighters who go overseas. It's kind of like American wrestlers who wrestle in Japan, pretty much.
Well, UFC is starting to pick it up big time here in New York, and we're going to start to wrap this up here. But hopefully you enjoyed UFC 200. It was a good show, and I think we had a good time. So there at B-Dubs.
Definitely had a good time.
All right. Well, Anthony, thank you very much for joining me on the show.
Thank you, brother.
As always. No problem. And thank you for listening. And as always, looking to talk more of the same. I'll catch you guys later.